We are live. Chocolate Dog checking in today. How y'all feeling? I'm going to get my good friend to join us. Give me one moment. Hey guys, how y'all doing? Inviting our guest speaker. Just give me a moment. Perfect. Okay. Hey y'all. Chocolate Dog checking in today. How y'all feeling? We are live. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're joining, tell me where you're from. If you know anyone that has a heartbeat, I promise you this is for them. Please tell them to join this. While we wait for our guest speaker to join us, I see she's joined. I just want to make sure she can connect. Dr. J will be joining us shortly. Hello, Christian from Miami. Rodney, what's up? Diana, how y'all doing? Just checking to make sure that the guest speaker can actually join. Give me one moment. We are not professionals, but we're going to figure it out. Perfect. She should be joining in a second. Give us a, oh, Miami. Dale. Just waiting for her to join, guys. Also want you to start thinking, if you know any doctors. Hey, awesome. So we're going to get started just in the interest of everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining. I am Dr. A, aka the Chocolate Doc. I'm a dual board certified diagnostic and interventional radiologist. That basically means I perform procedures that are image guided and minimally invasive. And I'm joined today by one of the best people in the entire world, the beautiful Dr. J.
Well, I'm so glad you always explain what you do because I feel like you have to explain it to me every single time. So thank you for that. And you are so incredible. Thank you for having me. What's up to everybody? And yeah, my name is Julia. I have a PhD in psychology. I focus on transformative social change, which for me is making social impact along with emotional impact. So not just focusing on the self, but how we can integrate things and systems into society to help create an impact culturally.
Awesome. So can you just tell our viewers some of the actual programs you've been able to create over the years?
Yeah, so I have a very interesting and unique perspective. I work with students all over the country. I've worked with over 1 million students, and they tell me very deep emotional things that they're going through, or we talk about social issues going on. And so throughout the past decade, I've developed different things to help support them on their journeys. Like I had an app once. Last year, the past 2 years, I built a crisis text line, have a book, things like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, y'all. She's the best. She is the best. While you guys are coming in, Instagram is telling us that it's telling you that we are live. So thanks so much for joining us. If you missed the beginning, just let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you know anyone with an actual heartbeat, I promise you this is for them. Please share it and remind them that they matter and that you love them. So we're going to jump right in. While we're doing this discussion, I want you to think of 3 things. I want you to think of, do you know any doctors? Okay, besides the beautiful ones sitting in front of you right here, think about any doctors that are in your life right now. That's number 1. Number 2, I want you to think about what are you hoping to gain from this time together? This is called worth it. And I'm going to kind of tell you why it's called worth it in 30 seconds. And then lastly, when's the last time you did a random act of kindness? Just think about it. I'm not putting anyone on blast. Diana, Rodney, Christian, no pressure. Just think about the last time, and I'm hoping by the time we're done, you might realize the impact of what that act does. So we're going to jump right in. This is split up into, the discussion is going to be about 10 minutes, and we're splitting it up into a few categories. The inspiration of why we're doing this. Number 1, the truth. We're going to tell you the statistics. This is not just vibes and emotions. Mm-hmm. And why is this happening, and what can we do so that we can have a brighter future for all of ourselves? Don't feel attacked. You are loved, okay?
Hi, Natalia.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. So let's jump right in. This September is Suicide Awareness Month. And Likely this is a topic that I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with, including myself, mainly because they might not know someone who is struggling with the mental health. But just because you don't know someone that's struggling with any mental health issues doesn't mean that they're actually not experiencing it. I bet if you really sit back and if you're honest with yourself, there might be someone that you know that has actually thought about taking their life, or even worse, made a plan to take their life. And I'm hoping with this discussion today, by bringing a little bit more awareness and just getting a better knowledge base, you feel empowered and we feel empowered as well to help all of us, because I do think this is another pandemic of the sorts. If you are one of those people who have ever made a plan or have thought about ending your life, what would you tell them, Julia?
It's absolutely incredibly brave to admit that and acknowledge that and to share that. And I would want them to know they're not alone. 100% that it doesn't make you even a bad person. You're just being honest, and honesty helps us heal.
Absolutely. And if we heal, we can be healthier versions of ourselves. So we're
Hmm.
so glad you're here. The point of this, and I'm going to say this a lot, especially on this platform, is for us to get healthier. If we can get healthier, then we can get wealthier
Hmm.
in mind, in body, and in spirit. So let's jump right in. This is a tweet that went on Twitter literally on September 13th. Okay. And I'm going to show it to you guys so you know I'm not making it up. And it reads, one of my best friends, Dr. Blank, took her own life after fighting against depression, insomnia, and feeling inadequate as a first-year resident physician. The grief has not eased. Residency working conditions need to be reformed. The loss of my best friend was preventable. Hashtag for blank. For those that don't know, when we graduate from medical school, we have to do something called residency. Okay. Residency can be anywhere from 3 years to 9 years, depending on what we actually specialize. This young doctor was actually so brave to share what him and his best friend unfortunately went through. And I saw the tweet and I actually went through a lot of the comments. It actually blew up on Med Twitter. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. We're
Yeah.
just talking about a tweet. Um, it blew up on my Twitter. Over 97,000 people liked it. Over 1,000 people made comments. And it was mostly comments of, I'm so sorry for your loss. And all of that's something that's very common that we say, and people truly do mean that, because we may or may not know what else to say. No one could offer any form of reform. No one could offer, how can we actually make this better so that it doesn't happen? Because this is not the first doctor that's actually killed themselves. So yesterday I posted a really shocking statistic that every day in America, a doctor commits suicide. Not making it up, the average number is 300 to 400 a year. As soon as I did that, one of my good friends in Minnesota, she's also a physician, shared that in the state of Minnesota, 4 to 5 physicians had committed suicides in the recent weeks. That's literally saying you calling your friend in Minnesota and you picking up the phone every Monday and they're telling you another one, another one, another one. These are our friends. These are our family members. These are our brothers and sisters. So I'm hoping today, even though we're telling physician stories, this is really the human story. We're
Mm,
all together and
that's
we're
good.
all worthy. So let's share some statistics, shall we? First one I told you, about 300 to 400 doctors commit suicide a year. That translates to one doctor dying every single day. What about the average American? 50,000 Americans commit suicide a year. What about the world? 700,000 people are committing suicide every single year across the globe. These are not numbers. These are people. These are families. These are brothers. These are sisters. These are sons. These are daughters. And that is really tragic. The last statistics I want to share before we kind of move on with our discussion is if you are between the age of 25 to 34, just wave at me. Tell me in the
Oh,
comments. That's including me too. I don't know if
not
we're
me.
Gen Zers. I don't think we're Gen Zers.
I'm a
I think I'm a
millennial
millennial.
OG.
What are 80s babies, guys? I'm not sure if 80s
Millennial
babies count.
OGs, yeah.
We're OGs?
Yes.
Okay, so we're like
We're at
we're
the
the cool
end.
kids.
We're at the end.
But in reality though, if you're between the age of 25 to 35, the most common cause of death is accidents. Can anyone share or guess what they think the second most common cause in the people in our age group is? I see Christian, I see Rodney, I see Robella Satalia saying her as well. Helen saying we're millennials. Can anyone guess what the second most common cause of death is?
You know, it can even be a scary word to even write.
That's right. Heart disease. No, our arteries are taking a lot longer than that, thankfully, even if we're
Good
eating
guess.
McDonald's every single day. But I do love that. Unfortunately, it is suicide. So if you literally think about it, the most common cause of death is an accident. The second most common cause of death is an intentional ending of their life, thinking simply because they have no hope at all. That is tragic. And I'm really sorry if my voice breaks at all during this. It's just a topic that it's really like affecting me. So I'm hoping that after today that we can just be on the path of change, essentially.
I think if it doesn't like affect you, then maybe it's not being fully experienced, and that's okay too, depending on where you're at. But it's almost impossible not to feel the heaviness in your heart when you think about it, in the fullness of a life is gone, because of whatever pain they were in or decision that they made in doing so. That we all miss out on another life and another light on this earth when that happens. So honestly, it's a very emotional and heavy topic, and there's no right or wrong in this conversation and how you feel or how you don't feel, but it is very real, as you pointed out in the statistics. So you can feel however it is you need to feel.
Thank you. And the last thing I will share is, even though we're, again, kind of the inspiration for this was physicians, we're going to compare physicians and non-physicians for 1 second. Okay. I don't want to mess it up, so I'm going to read it. Most doctors that commit suicide were less likely to be receiving mental health treatment compared with non-physicians who took their lives, even though depression was equal and a significant risk factor in each of those groups. The biggest difference, believe it or not, was that the doctors were actually self-medicating themselves because we have easier access to medications, versus the non-physicians. They were actually more in higher numbers able to address the issue. So the point of tonight is, let's just talk about what the actual heart of the matter is. If we're able to address the heart of the matter, it's a higher likelihood of healing.
I think one of the biggest hearts of the matter is the fact that it's so hard to talk about because there's stigmas stamped on them. And so when I work with mostly the population you were talking about, that age range, I ask them why they struggle in silence, why they choose to stay silent about things that they're struggling with. And one of the number one things I hear is they don't want to be a burden. And this is counterintuitive to the stigma that people are selfish when they die by suicide. How could you do that to your kids? Or those are kind of the thoughts that swirl around. And I've been guilty of those thoughts too. And it took, being really invested in my advocacy in this space to really understand that the perspective is, a lot of times they actually think they're doing the world a service or their loved ones a service. And they're not trying to hurt anyone else. They're not maybe even trying to hurt themselves. They're trying to end pain. They want pain to stop. Or they think maybe the world will be better if they are gone. So we'll never know the one reason why someone chooses to take their life. But we do know that talking about suicide does not make someone more likely to die by suicide. So this right here, this space, Dr. Dashai, that you just created is part of us moving forward, because it destigmatizes things right then and there, because you're now contributing and being honest in your conversations about what's going on, and we're not just brushing under the rug or assuming that person was this way, or we can't talk about it because that means we'll have to talk about mental health and I don't have any problems, and et cetera, on all of the stigmas.
So I love how you said it's a conversation. Does that means everyone here being part of the conversation, we're already together being part of the solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I,
100%.
and I think what's really hard, I'll give you the medical physician perspective, or anyone else that's in a high functioning capacity, whether you're a professional athlete. I see we have Marissa here, she's a professional golfer, professional athlete, or in the corporate world. We train in such a way that is so arduous, that expects us to be what we call highly reliable.
Mm-hmm.
So a highly reliable individual, for me specifically, if I go into one room and that patient was dying and we were able to actually help heal and bring that patient back to life, that means I go literally to the next room and have to deal with a dying patient right in front of me that we could not actually help. My emotion is nowhere near connected to how good of a physician that I am. And that's what the system, unfortunately, is telling us. And I don't think that's true at all. So if you're told and if you're taught, I need to show up 1,000% every single day, if I don't feel 1,000% inside, what is my out? So why do you think this is happening, Jules, with people that have been told they have incredibly bright futures?
I think the word boils down to pressure. I think that pressure can it can propel you forward, but it can also crush you. And
Well,
ultimately, when we take more and more pressure on and we don't have any channels or release, be it talk therapy, which is a form of therapy. There are many forms of therapy. It doesn't always look like sitting on a couch and talking. And now we get to do it on Zoom. But there's all kinds of ways to channel and express what goes into our bodies, which all that pressure, expectation, got to be perfect, got to do all this, got to be robotic, I mean, the insane amount that physicians have. My father was a physician, and you all are my heroes. It is absolutely going to, sometimes what I say is drive you or destroy you, because it really depends. It's neutral unless you find either the way to allow it to propel you or it will crush you. So you have to realize that if it's going in, it has to come back out.
So if I'm a high functional individual and I have a passion, for example, and I feel like that passion is driving me on Monday, and then on Tuesday it's crushing me, what can I do?
Okay, so there's a few things that you can do, but the biggest thing is first acknowledging that that's happening. Oh,
Wow.
shoot, I'm having like these dark feelings and dark thoughts. Because if we don't get real with how we feel, we can't deal with them. So you have to acknowledge. That's like first and foremost. I would always recommend you tell someone, write it out, yell it out. You have to get it out in some way. Like some people do physical exercise, but that could actually put more pressure on someone who's high performing. So maybe that's not your thing, right? It's something that you cannot have to perform in. That is how you kind of channel what you're going to release things in, where there's no expectations. So if you can just have a conversation with someone and there's no end result expectation, that takes the pressure off of you to be open. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And who do you think we should be talking to? Should this be our friends? Should this be a therapist? Should this be our pastors if we are religious in any way, shape, or form?
I mean, honestly, anyone, absolutely anyone, because the opposite is struggling in silence.
Wow.
And when we struggle in silence, it becomes a cycle. And that cycle continues because of maybe now we start to feel shame, or now we start to think we're feeling really insecure, and the struggle just continues and it continues and it becomes a cycle. And now we actually aren't even we don't even want to say anything now because we've got so deep into the cycle of being independent.
So where can you start in terms of that conversation? What's the first thing you think you can say? And everyone that's joining, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions at all on this topic, you can feel free to ask and we're going to try to get to it. But where can I start is really my question right now.
Yeah, so if you were having like that kind of day and that
Yeah.
emotion, I think the first thing and the only thing you can do is somehow be honest about it with someone. You have to be honest to heal. So if that looks like you writing it to someone, texting it, Sometimes it could be as simple as like I have a friend where I know if I'm getting into a dark place in my mind, because I have been someone who has struggled with suicide ideation. I was much younger, but if I ever just get dark thoughts, I literally just tap them in through a text message, like, "Hey, send me a prayer." You know, like I just tap them in, and it's like something. It now becomes a tool I have. So it is almost like working out. I'm not going to pretend I know all the things you do, but if you don't know, Dr. Deshawn is like a bodybuilder, low key. So basically, it's that muscle you're working. I'm going to pretend I'm totally, the form is off. Okay, the form is wrong. Don't pay attention to that. So you have a repetition. So every time I struggle, these are the 4 questions I ask people to ask themselves. If you are struggling, I don't know if anyone wants to write this down. You say, what am I struggling with? That's how we get real. I don't care if you write it. What am I struggling with? How do I feel? What do I need? And why am I staying silent?
Wow.
Very revealing. And it could be different every day. It could be, I'm struggling with believing I have a purpose to my life. How do I feel about that? What do I need? And then you'll identify what you need, because it is individual.
Yeah.
And it is dependent on the resources, the community that you have or don't have, right? That also can sometimes be like, some people might think it's limiting to not have like a lot of friends they could talk to, but I got really creative, and that's why I started writing poetry. And that's what drew me into a church eventually. And so you can also get creative. So there is always someone. There are people all over the world. I know people who are watching this now who have made themselves available to people who are in time of crisis, and any time of the day or day of week, there are people who care. So it's reminding yourself that, you know what, whatever stigma I think or bias I have about opening up and being real with how I feel, you just got to break it so you get out of that cycle.
Yeah. I want to say both of us are actually products of what we're talking about. I'm in therapy right now. I've been in therapy for quite some time, and it is incredibly necessary to be able to have a voice box, whether it's my friends, whether it's a professional. Why do I think it's okay to stay in silence? And me honestly processing my emotions. I'm on that journey right now. Being a physician, I've been so good at being just intelligent, as what the world will call it, with books, with facts, etc. But in terms of emotional intelligence, that's the journey I'm on now, and it's been so incredibly helpful in this journey, because life is always going to hit you with one thing or another, but having a community and resources and even asking yourself those 4 questions is so important. Thanks for breaking those down.
I do have one bonus question for you, because what's really critical when you get to that low place is having hope. So if maybe you've even heard me, if you know me personally, I always ask people like, what are you hopeful for? What are you hopeful for? So the 5th bonus question is, what are you hopeful for? Because it's so important to identify things you're looking forward to.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And I think that also helps if you're hopeful in something. It might make you remember your actual worth. I said
Mm.
this today, and it might be one of the biggest things to take away. If you're in any situation that's making you question your worth, you have to go back to the drawing board. I'm not saying go ahead and quit your job tomorrow. That's not what I'm saying. We have to be smart. But literally go back to your drawing board and ask your why. We do this with each other all the time. And if your why is in something that is tangible, meaning fame, money, beauty, etc., you might want to question your why, because all of those things are incredibly temporary and they feel good for a moment. But if your why if your why isn't something that's intangible, meaning something like community, something like accountability, those are the things that I think are actually end up becoming eternal and ultimately fulfilling. I'm going to share this one story, and we're going to wrap up in the interest of everyone's time. I talked to a great friend today, and she actually was a complete boss in corporate America, complete boss. And she walked away from that job this year. And guess what she's doing now?
Hawaii.
Say it again.
Hawaii.
Hawaii? No, she's not in Hawaii, although Hawaii would be amazing. She's now driving for Uber. And this is the most fulfilling she's
Live
ever
your life.
felt. is the most fulfilling she's ever felt in her entire life, because she's actually connecting with the people in her back seat or her front seat. She's asking them how's their
Wow.
heart. She's making these connections with them, and it's actually been life changing. No,
I
she's
love
not a
that.
dog walker, although I feel
Yeah.
like a dog walker would also bring a lot of joy, and a barista if you're a coffee maker. But the point is, it doesn't matter your status in terms of life. It really is what's the status of your heart. So I want you to take care of yourself and find a community that you can talk to, whether that's a professional or just a friend or a brother or a sister that you could just lock arms with and say, hey, I'm struggling today. I'm having a hard day. And if you're following me on this platform, we're going to say this a ton of times together. Mental health equals mental wealth. Physical health equals physical wealth. Spiritual health equals spiritual wealth. I want all of us to get healthier and wealthier together. If you have any questions, we're going to stick around for 1 or 2 minutes or so, just in interest of everyone's time. Thanks so much for joining us. If you are ever struggling, I want you to know help is available, and 24 hours a day in English and in Spanish for sure. You can dial 988. That is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, and they're available to help. I'm Dr. A. This has been the IR Minute Live. I'm available on Kinju MD on all social media platforms. This is Dr. J, and where can they connect with you if they'd like to find out more?
Sincerely, Dr. J.
On Instagram.
Yeah,
Right?
and yeah, online and stuff. Yeah.
Online, everywhere.
Everything's tagged. I will say before we go, if you are interested in just being an advocate, one of the things you don't want to do is don't assume you know what someone needs. So always ask a lot of open-ended questions. So not like a yes or no, or like, how you doing? Like where it's a short answer, right? Like, you doing good? Yeah. So try and ask open-ended questions. That's something just all of us hopefully can take away. Now we have like a tool where we can be just even better advocates.
One that I love is, how is your heart? And people are always like taken back by it, but you
I
are
just
able
was
to
taken back.
find
But
out.
you do ask that. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize.
I
But
do.
yes, you do.
I just want to know. Before we hop off, we have one question. It says, what is the suggestion that you have for college students with social anxiety?
Wow. I don't see the questions. How do you? Oh, they're just going to you.
Yeah.
Okay. An incredible question, and let me tell you, this is probably the number one thing right now that I am hearing about on the ground working with college students and university students. Um, I think there's obviously a lot of tools available online to be like, here's what the things that can help. You could do X, Y, and Z, this breathing exercise, things like that. So I'm not going to get into all of that. I would say the biggest thing is, don't think you're less
Wow.
because of it. Don't think it disqualifies you. Don't think you're inconveniencing anyone. Don't think you're not qualified because of it. Because for instance, anger isn't always a bad thing, because when I channel it, man, it makes me very passionate. So you like anxiety, it's something that is awful to experience, and my heart goes out to you and anyone who is struggling with that. But do not think that that makes you less than, because like 100% I believe in, we invest in what we value, and you keep investing in yourself, the things that make you passionate, and all of the things about you, because you're not just defined by your anxiety, right? And so I think it's just so powerful when you, I like to say, rewrite the narrative, when you take the pen back and you say, okay, cool, I got anxiety, but now like I'm gonna like take my authority in this now, and it's not going to define me. I'm going to define it. And so I think just beyond the exercises and things like that, what I would want to contribute to that conversation is really how our perspective of ourselves as people who struggle with anxiety.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Jules. Although we focused on physician and some non-physician stories today, I hope you guys remember that it's not just physicians that struggle with suicide. It's all of us. It's our human story. Remember, you're worthy. You are loved. Thanks so much for joining, and we will see you guys next time. I'm Dr. A, and this is Dr. J. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.